is a set of absolutely beautifully, deliciously pigmented watercolor tubes, and I have been working on this in the background for quite some time. And my passion for watercolor and everything that it can do, and just the joy that it unleashes as you're using it, makes every single color in this very, very important to me. And each of these deliciously pigmented watercolor paints remind us that there's still such beauty in the world, and not only that, you can create it yourself. Each hue is just so loaded with gorgeous color, and the colors are all named or inspired by wonderful books that have captivated readers through time and the world over. And the way that I name Jane Davenport Art Supplies is my special way of expressing the love, the thought, and the playful spirit that's inherent in everything that I do. Put simply, I just want to create things that make you want to pick them up and use them, because I know that using these beautiful art supplies just is going to make you create more, and it's just going to make you happy. And we want happiness. I want more happiness in the world. That's the fun part of this design process, but the nitty gritty, it's all here on the back of the boxes. You've got a description of the color as well as the playful names, the pigment index, light fastness, and permanence. So at the end of the day, you know that these are artist quality and master quality paints. Some are single pigments, some are convenience mixes. Put all together, they form a gorgeous spectrum of colour that will take you from the most vivid brights, which are so much fun to create with, through to beautiful deep shadow colours, as well as warm, gorgeous portrait colours that will allow you to create the full diversity of the beautiful skins that we all arrive in. In my collections, I've got watercolour in lots of different formats. You're probably most familiar with the pans, but we've also got watercolour pencils in the water wands, aqua pastels, which are water-soluble crayons, and so are the colour sticks and the marzipan twists, as well as the small format art time watercolours and watercolour inks. What makes these special? What makes the Colour Library watercolour tubes important? Well, number one factor is it's the colours and the pigments in this set that are just gorgeous to create with and work with. And number two, because this is a paste, it's a watercolour paste, you can put them in any kind of palette that you like. I've added magnets to the back of half pans, filled those with a new Colour Library, popped them in a gorgeous vintage tin. I've got a set of travel watercolours in one of the Art Time palettes. This is very, very portable and flat. There are quarter-size palettes. We've also got the really large format lattice palette. This is a fantastic little creature because it has very deep wells and you can really get very splishy and splashy. So I love using this when I'm working very, very loosely. I love, of course, the Mermaid Scale Pantastic palette, and there's just tons of different palettes, wooden ones and acrylic ones, all sorts that you can find on the internet or that you might already have or that you might like to make yourself. And there's enough paint in each one of the tubes for you to make quite a few sets. And it's just so easy to do it. All you need to do is pop a little bit of the watercolour from the tubes into the pan of your choice and then let it set until it dries, which takes around about 24 hours depending on the weather, but not usually longer than that. And that will just mean that they're set enough that you can travel with them and they won't move. They'll just stay in their little pans. I sometimes use just a little wooden kebab skewer. You could use a toothpick just to make sure the paint gets into all of the corners. And then just let that set for 24 hours. And that will mean that the paint won't move around. It won't be in its soft state. It will set. and you can travel with it and move it about without fear of it moving throughout the pan. So I've created a travel set. I've created this set here, which has got all 36 of my original watercolors from the little beautiful tins. And then I've added magnets to the back of the pans and put them in this gorgeous vintage watercolor tin. And then with the gorgeous new 24 colors, which are all different to the original watercolors. I love to give you variety. You've got just such a beautiful spectrum of colors, ready and waiting for you to play with them. When you get your beautiful colour library, one of the first things that you're going to want to do is swatch the colours out. When you swatch them out, rather than rinse out your brush every time you use it, on the other side of the page, why not just use up the paint and create a little bit of a rainbow abstract artwork that you can use as a background for something else. Every time you use your art supplies, it informs you and teaches you more and more about them. So the colours that I've already started with on the page are Heart of Darkness, Art of War, Lost World. They're our three darkest. Painted Veil is this beautiful neutral skin tone that's joined by Centre of the Earth and War of the Worlds. And Treasure Island is the ochre yellow of the pack. Great Expectations and Time Machine are our yellows. Great Gatsby, Scarlet Letter are our reds and our oranges. Pinks, we've got Pygmalion, Wuthering Heights, Little Women, Pride and Prejudice. We go into Oliver Twist, Gone with the Wind, 80 Days, The Odyssey, 20,000 Leagues, Gulliver's Travels, Secret Garden, Wind in the Willows, and Green Gables. So over the two sets, when you combine them, you've got that beautiful full spectrum. And they're split into two sets. One is cooler and brighter. This is the By the Seaside set. And the other set is warmer and has more colours for portraits. And that's the By the Fireside set. And of course, these two sets are named after two places where it's really wonderful to cozy up and read an incredible book, which is the inspiration behind all of the colour names. So that's the thought behind the sets. Now look at what they can do. Well, they can just make you feel happy. That's priority number one. And on these different pages that I've got in my journal, this is from where I'm testing colours and working out which colours go together, how I want the stories to unfold, how I want to best entrance people to try watercolour if you've never tried it before. Or if you have tried watercolour and it just hasn't grabbed you, it could be the watercolours themselves. This set of watercolours is the whole intention is to make you absolutely love this incredible medium because I know the joy that it gives me and I want that for everybody. Watercolour is amazing. And as well as just paint with it, we can also spray with it. I'll show you that in a second. And you can make your own markers with it as well. Here I've sprayed through laces. I'm using good watercolour paper too from my journals. All of my journals are fine with watercolour, but the ones that have watercolour paper in them, Glittering Prize, Back to the Fuchsia, the JDMM ones, the Aquaculture, and the paper packs that relate to those, watercolour loving. This particular image I've created with putting the watercolour into my Inky Depths water brushes so that I've made my own mermaid markers with them. And I can just paint without getting any water ready or anything, just use them like a marker. So to create these, first of all, I start off with making my watercolour sprays. I add a little bit of the watercolour to whichever mister bottle I want to use. I love my Svelte sprayers for watercolour sprays. And then add some distilled water. You can try mixing with just a little bit of the watercolour first, adding your water, and then just spraying and seeing how you like the colour. If you want it stronger, add a little bit more watercolour. If you like it as it is, great. The distilled water is fantastic because it doesn't have chemicals in it. It's the type of water you would put in a steam iron. You can add a stainless steel mixing ball or ball bearing to it. That just helps mix your colour up a little easier because the pigment will settle to the bottom of the mister bottle each time in between uses. And then once you've made up your ink, your spraying ink, put a little bit in a water brush and you've got a fabulous marker that you can use. I've even been using watercolour in a fountain pen. I'm still experimenting with that. It's been fantastic, but only put it in one of my incredible pens or a fountain pen. As far as fountain pens go, those are very, very inexpensive, and if something went wrong, it's not the end of the world. It's very easy to clean a fountain pen anyway, but I've been very surprised, and I will keep trying watercolour in everything that I can because, well, it just is new, different, fun ways to use watercolours. Also, you can create your own mix. You can mix your own colours, and there's 2 sets of mixing colours in the set. You've got a warm mixing set with your red, blue and a warm yellow, and you've got a cool mixing set with the turquoise, hot pink and lemon yellow. So you've got your warm and cool mixing colours, so you can mix whatever colours you like, as well as lovely, beautiful black called Art of War in there as well. And the white is in the Go-Go Gouache. The white watercolour, white gouache, delicious. I've put all of the colours into these Svelte sprayers, which have got these nice trigger types. Because I do so much spraying with my watercolours, I find that very comfortable in the hand, and that whole set fits into the box part of the early riser storage. And you could still fit all of the inky brush mermaid markers that you make with them as well. Or, like I do, I put them in their own little container. They pretty much haven't left my desk since I created them. So you can use your colour library to make any palette you like and use them like a normal watercolour. You could also just put them on a palette and use them as you want to from the tube. I put them in my mermaid markers to make markers, to create beautiful marks, and the sprays, 3 layers. Oh, heaven on a stick. Each set also comes with a swatching card, which is plain. Here I've already done an initial wash of colour, and what I like to do with my watercolours when I'm swatching them out is have them in their more washed out state. So that's that first little initial run with lots of water in my brush, and then I like to come back over and add another layer of colour so that I can quickly see how light I can have my colour and how deep I can have that same colour. So you can try that with your swatch card as well. And I'll just point out another fascinating thing with watercolour is the more transparent and brilliant the colour is, the darker it appears in the palette. So sometimes it just looks like black in the palette, but once you know your palette, you know exactly what colour is going to get released from those gorgeous pans. I've got so much more to show you with watercolour. On the website, you'll find all sorts of accessories for a start, like the drench sponge, all of our beautiful brushes, our kinder binder, beautiful palettes, everything that you need to help you and assist you and make you feel supported as you're creating. I have online workshops dedicated to watercolour and that use watercolour intensively, so you can learn more about it there, or you can join me on my Facebook page. And I do love streamings, my live streams there, where I'm using watercolour all the time because I just love it so much. The colour libraries are only at janedavenport.com, as are these gorgeous mermaid scale palettes, the Fantastic palette. It just makes me happy to look at it. And this paper that I'm using is the window pane paper that goes crinkly and delicious as it gets used with your wet art supplies. There's just no end, seriously, to the fun that you can have with watercolour, and you can combine it with all of our other mixed media, because unless an art supply can work with watercolour, it's not getting into my collection. Amazing watercolours, I've said it a few times in this video already, amazing watercolours can really lift your spirits and just give you so much joy. And that to me is what art supplies are all about, and doing art and enjoying yourself and looking at rainbows and getting ink and watercolor and pencil and whatever else on your fingers and all over the place, because it's just such an easy way to tap in and enjoy yourself no matter what else is going on in the world. I know I've got my watercolors and they're going to make me feel happy and hopeful and creative.